Hi, everybody. I'm nobody. I'm a working class American, retired Army veteran, not a career politician or a member of high society. I've got this crazy idea that maybe I could be a better president than some of the folks we've had in office over the last, I don't know, couple of decades. So I'm going to talk to you today a little bit about gender diversity and some of the stuff they've been talking about on the news. I think Donald Trump signed a new executive order to keep transgender people from playing sports. And so I've got some videos that I'll show you, um, and we'll let you decide whether some of the information I give you is supporting or uh, or against it. So, question is, do we have a transgender crisis? You know, I don't know. So let's watch a couple of videos and let's kind of think about some of the issues here. My first one, Donald Trump, I believe.
My administration is also working to protect our children from toxic ideologies in our schools.
Toxic, toxic ideologies in schools. So I taught for 17 years in four different school corporations, and I'm not sure what fear he's trying to stir up and whose community they're worried about this transgender epidemic, but I never saw it. Um, Maybe my last few years at Blackford High School, I had a few students that dressed differently or they wanted to be called something different than what was on their record. And as a school teacher, I didn't see any problem in obliging them. We we expect respect from our students, and I think it's important for teachers to respect them back. So I did a Google search, and I know a lot of folks don't like AI. They're like, well, AI isn't accurate. Well, maybe it's not. The AI is based on information that the internet or the AI search, whatever it is, looks through all of this stuff on the internet and then it comes up with an answer. So it's looking up the best information that it has. And of all the information that's apparently on the internet, this is the conclusion that it came up with. It says zero public schools in the United States have performed a sex change operation, gender affirming surgery on a student. This claim has been widely fact checked and found to be false. There is no evidence of such an event ever occurring. That's pretty strong. Maybe I'm looking for only the information I want, but I can tell you I did go to the Heritage Foundation and found all sorts of information about all these schools that are out there, and I'll talk about that in a few minutes. So a little more data that came with that query. Surgeries on minors are rare, um, and most almost exclusively involved chest surgeries for adolescents, age 15 to 17, with prolonged gender dysphoria following a rigorous assessment process involving I can't speak today, involving an interdisciplinary team, the patient, and their parents. So I don't know what all this fear mongering stuff's going on, but it wasn't happening at my school, and I don't think it's happening in any other school because it's against the law, and I don't know why we need to create new laws unless these new laws are just a plain distraction from other more important things that are going on in our government. So it says no evidence has been provided when asked to provide examples of schools performing such operations. So these empty statements are made that they're doing all this stuff. These schools are doing this and doing that. And we got all this transgender, this and that. And according to this, the political campaigns have been unable to produce any evidence. I'm guessing this is some of that evidence that's in those truckloads that we hear about from the White House. So they got truckloads of evidence. Just wait. Just wait. Truckloads of evidence. Because we know that when we have truckloads of evidence, we like to wait because we don't want to use that and like convict anybody too soon. I think I'm being a little facetious there, but anyways, let's move on. Here's another video. Donald Trump.
And criminalizing sex changes on children and forever ending the lie that any child is trapped in the wrong body. This is a big lie.
Lie. You don't want kids.
And our message to every child in America is that you are perfect exactly the way God made you.
Perfect exactly the way God made you, unless you ask your teacher to call you something different than what's on the roster. Okay? Your name's Becky, but you want to be called Bob. So you were perfect, but now you're just stupid. I don't get it. Okay? I really don't get it. Now I understand what he's painting this picture as though there's this concern and we want to protect our kids. But I'm not exactly sure which kids we are protecting. The transgender kids and their consultations with their doctors in conjunction with their parents, or protecting them from those who aren't in their family and just want to get into their business on what they're doing. So I don't know. Oh, here's this crazy Kennedy. So let's see what he's got to say.
So-called gender-affirming care has inflicted lasting physical and psychological damage on vulnerable young people. This is not medicine, it is malpractice.
Okay, so he's talking about mutilation and this is not medicine, acting like it's this huge crisis, like there's just millions of kids who are out there doing sex changes at schools and trying to convince them that if they're a boy, they ought to act like a girl, and if they're a girl, it's okay to act like a boy. Look, there's no indoctrination going on at schools. We just respect the kids. If a boy wants to dress like a girl and come to my class, I don't care. I was a shop teacher. If they're wearing safety glasses and they got their shirt tucked in, hey, we're good to go. I don't care. I don't care if it's a boy who wants to be a girl or a girl who wants to be a boy. It doesn't matter. I'm a school teacher. Maybe that's something to be talked about at home rather than a teacher pushing their values onto a student. And that seems like that's what we're doing. We don't like what other people are doing, so we're getting in their business. Okay, well, we're going to start putting cameras up in people's bedrooms, because if they aren't doing things right, we want to know about it and we're going to fix it. We want to correct it, because we can't have any of that odd stuff going on, because we know that doesn't happen. All right, so I did some research. I found an official website of the United States government called the National Library of Medicine. And one of my questions was, it's like, how many kids are we talking about? Because all this effort we're putting into through our government to protect these transgender kids from being mutilated by horrible doctors and parents all across the country. So this National Library of Medicine says that 82% of transgender individuals have considered killing themselves. 82%. Now, I looked up some numbers yesterday, and it can vary by sources, but I thought they said something about there's like 12,000 12,000 people. It's like 1% of the population. So that could be way off. Okay, so we've got this number of transgender kids that are out there. And they're having some issues trying to figure out their feelings and that kind of stuff. And we're going to tell them that if you're feeling stuff, it's okay to feel stuff, but we're not going to let you do anything about it. Matter of fact, you can't even talk to your parents about it. The White House says that the kids talk to the schools don't talk to the parents, and then let them have sex changes. Now, there isn't a doctor, no, I can't say there isn't a doctor, but it's against the law. What kind of doctor would do a surgery on a minor without parental consent? You can't tell me that is just running rampant through our country. I don't believe that. So we've got this group of kids, and we're worried about them. We're worried about this mutilation that because they're kids, they can't make decisions for themselves. I got that. They're young, but they're not making it by themselves. They're making it in conjunction with a practitioner, a doctor, whether it's a psychological doctor or a physiological doctor, and they're doing it together, which to me is nobody's business but theirs. But 82% of these kids or adults have considered killing themselves. 82%. So if this group of people, we care and love them so much that we want to protect them, daggone nearly all of them are so upset about their situation that they want to kill themselves. And it says that 40% have attempted to kill themselves. So then I look up, wow, I wonder how many of these kids have regrets. And you can look that up through AI or Google search or ask Siri, ask the question, how many minors who've thought about transgender surgery or had transgender surgery have regretted having had it? Okay, in the same National Library of Medicine, it was a different page that had this information on it. An official website of the U.S. government said the prevalence of regret among patients undergoing transmasculine and transfeminine surgeries was less than 1%. Less than 1%. So, these mutilations that Kennedy and Trump are talking about that we want to stop because we care so much about these kids is for the 1% who decided, man, I wish I wouldn't have done that. Now keep in mind, this therapy doesn't necessarily have to be a surgery. It could be some kind of hormone therapy. Doesn't have to. There's very few actual surgeries that are done. So for the sake of the 1%, we're going to allow our suicide rate. I found another document. I can't tell you which one it was, but you can look this up too. But just since the Trump administration have been pushing these ideologies against transgender ideologies, the suicide rate has went up 72%. Now that's significant. So if you got 1,000 kids, that means 820 of them have thought about suicide. 820 out of 1,000. 400 out of 1,000 have actually tried or attempted to commit suicide. And we're worried about 10. That's 1% of 1,000. 10. And all this government stuff and all this stirring up everybody, all the fear about these transgender kids that might bump into one of our kids and turn them into homosexuals or gays or lesbians or cross-dressers or whatever. That's what we're worried about. All right, here's another study I found. You can look this up. the Ann and Robert H. Lurie, if I pronounce that right, Children's Hospital of Chicago. Now, this may not be a good document because it's from Chicago, and they're all a bunch of libtards there in Chicago, and we can't trust them, so the data could be off. Okay, but let's say it is. And at least in their hospitals, they're saying that 78% of transgender diverse youth who were screened at the emergency department from 2019 to August 2022, that's 1 out of 4, had active suicidal thoughts. So are we really protecting these kids? Because I don't really think we are. It's kind of like the drugs down in South America, and we need an aircraft carrier down there for the drugs. One thing's happening, but it's something else. Okay, we're not down in South America because of drugs. It's all about oil. And the same thing here. This isn't about transgender kids. We aren't protecting them. This is about protecting people who aren't transgender. So I did some research and tried to find out one of these schools. So I found a document. It was by the Heritage Foundation, said that 6,000 schools across the country didn't comply with transgender, how they're supposed to run the school. I don't know if it's with the bathroom, boys and girls, or they're letting one boy go into a girl's bathroom or a guy go into a girl's, but they said they weren't compliant to their new policies. So this is the Heritage Foundation, and if you know the Heritage Foundation, they are a conservative group, and my understanding is they were played a big part in writing the Project 2025 that Trump doesn't know anything about. And so the Heritage Foundation says 6,000 schools that are out there. Okay, so they're this weird ideology stuff about transgenders. Okay, so I go to the Heritage Foundation, and I'm trying to figure out, well, what references are they using? So I find a URL in there, and it says it's from a conservative group called Parents Defending Education. Okay, so to support Trump is the Heritage Foundation, and then supporting the Heritage Foundation is a conservative group called Parents Defending Education. So I go to their site, and then I see their long list of schools, and I scroll down, and then I find Indiana, and there were 2 in Indiana. That's where I'm from. One of them was Clark Pleasant Community School Corporation. I'm right. All right. So I click on that link, and it takes me to their the Community School Corporation page that has, like, their school board minutes and all this other stuff. And it actually had a filter in there, and it was called Board Docs. And through their little Board Docs program, I typed in things like sex and gender and identity and tried to find any kind of document that talked about transgender anything. And in my search, I found nothing. Talked about EO. It talked about sexual harassment. When I typed in sex, there was nothing in there that talked about any kind of accommodations for transgender anybody. So that's my thing about information. Where's it coming from? This group says that this group said it, and then this group says this group said it, and this group cites this organization who cites this school corporation, and you dig down in there, and I spent an hour of my time trying to find information that supported their argument, and that's the issue that I have. Misinformation is so easily put out because it's so much daggone work to try to find out if what they said was right. And to me, if it sounds stupid, it's stupid. MAGA talks about common sense. I hear old JD talking about common sense, common sense, common sense. Well, what common sense are we talking about? The 1% versus the 82% of transgender kids that are mentally frustrated about their physical and mental condition. or their situation. I don't know if it's considered condition, may be the wrong word. Okay. But whatever it's got them emotionally concerned about their sexual identity and their frustration with how they're not fitting in with others. I mean, don't we care? If we really cared about them, it seems like we'd be concerned about their suicide rate, not be concerned whether they're taking hormone therapy so they can have bigger chests if they're a boy or smaller chests if they're a girl. It said that there was one of the documents I found said something like, don't quote me on this one, but it was like 20% of the kids, they tried it and they didn't like it, or they started to find their way back to what conservatives would consider normal. But there's folks out there that, hey, if that's what they got to do to be happy, why are we so against it? Why are we getting into other people's business and then making this huge thing like it's a tragedy? How about taking nicotine out of cigarettes? How many people die every year because of cigarettes, tobacco products? We're more worried about red food coloring. All right, so either the Russians are screwing with me or the Trump administration's probably on me because they don't like my posts. I don't know. Or my computer's just old and I need to replace it because it keeps locking up. So if there's another 40-second delay in there, then I apologize for that. So who are we really trying to protect? Is it the transgender kids? Or are we really trying to protect the parents of the kids who are not transgender? Because the data doesn't pass the common sense test to me. So that's my spiel for the day about transgender. Again, I'm nobody. Be strong, America. Love thy neighbor. Together, we can do better. Nobody out.